Most companies have goals, but very few have a vivid vision. The problem is, without a clear picture of where you're going and what success actually looks like, your team drifts, your culture fragments, and your execution slows down. At Faris Capital Partners, our vivid vision for 2027 is our North Star. It shapes every hire, every investment opportunity that we have that presents itself, and every client experience. And today we're going to be unpacking what that vision actually looks like and how it actually will unfold moving forward. And we're going to be going over that from start to finish. John, it's great to be here with you.
Mark, it's so good to be here. When you first introduced this book, and we'll get to the book in a minute, but this concept of the vivid vision to me, it was like this light bulb moment, because at my prior company, Mark Spain Real Estate, I would say, we had a very clear vision, but we had what I would say is sort of the typical vision statement, 2 or 3 sentences, forward looking, sure. But it was a little like, there wasn't a lot of meat to it, right? It was like, we want to be really great at these things. And, clearly we had a successful exit, things went really well. But I was thinking back, as we were producing this vivid vision for Faris Capital, I'm like, I used to get a lot of questions from agents about where are we going? What are we doing? Where are we headed? And so it was just like, what a great concept, really sitting down and creating a narrative description, like a crystal clear vision with goals and where, and so anyway, I'm really excited to jump in this topic because it was a newer concept for me, but a total game changer.
Yeah, for sure. And so if you are thinking about, before we jump into this one, because this is going to be really exciting, guys, we're going to be talking about what it actually looks like 3 years down the road. And if you are running a company and how you can apply this idea to your business to help create alignment in your story of your company and your growth moving forward. But before we do, if you are looking for a real estate deal and you can't find anything, or you just don't have time to be able to go and find a deal, or maybe you're concerned in regards to the overall real estate market, go to fulloutinvesting.com and you can actually download a free presentation there with a sample deal that actually looks like what a deal actually looks like when you invest with Faris Capital. But more than that, in this presentation, it's about 50 minutes. And in that presentation, you're going to understand the 10-step process to be able to acquire a multifamily deal. And so you're going to learn a lot by going to fulloutinvesting.com and check that out. So, John, moving on here, Cameron Herold wrote this book, Vivid Vision. And so we hear this a lot about having like a clear vision of where you're going. And so, you and I, we own the company, John. And so for us, it's really important that we take, you and I were in the room, in the hotel room down at the lobby. There was we rented an office. Yeah, remember that? And we sat there, it was just the two of us, as this big boardroom. And we're like, okay, what do we want this company to represent? And so we were there pretty much for the day. And we talked through everything that, in our previous businesses, what that actually looked like. We're like, okay, we really like this. We've changed this. And we sat, and there was just such alignment that day, and we wrote everything down. And from that stemmed this vision. And so this book that Cameron Herold wrote called Vivid Vision was kind of the catalyst there to be able to do this. But the beauty of this, like you had mentioned, John, is it creates clarity within your company as you grow in scale to be able to say, okay, here's where we're going. And the cool thing with this, John, is that it helps you form your decisions on a day-to-day basis. Like, okay, we're going over into this market, or we want to grow for us, 10,000 units is where we want to be, 10 years by 2030 was where we want to be. And so what are the steps along the way? And so the milestones become really important. If we can communicate that effectively, that's succinctly written on a page or two, this team loves it. It creates clarity. It's like, oh, I'm part of something, and this is where we're going, and there's alignment in that. And so, yeah, John, excited to be talking about this.
Yeah, it's interesting too, Mark, from a timing perspective. We're just a couple weeks past the 2-year anniversary of sitting in that, boardroom there at the hotel, writing down all those thoughts and ideas. And I think the Vivid Vision came about probably about 6 months later in terms of like when we finally had it locked. It was not something we did in an afternoon. We had a lot of the concepts there, and that day there was so much clarity. But, once we started getting into it and bringing on some team members, it really kind of gelled and coalesced. And so that's when we really locked it. It is a living, breathing document in the sense that we go back and we look at it on a regular basis. I mean, at minimum quarterly, but sometimes more frequently than that, as a team. So the whole team is looking at this together in a meeting. So it's not just something that gets put on the desk or sort of filed away and forgotten about. So we'll get into kind of the mechanisms and the things you'll need to do to, once, you craft this for your company to really keep it top of mind. But it's the clarity is really the main thing. And I think about like Gallup, right? The polling organization, and they do a lot of polling, on the workplace. And, I don't have the number right in my brain here because it just kind of came to mind. But I remember reading a study a few years ago where it was like the overwhelming majority, it was something like 70% of employees said that they had no idea what the vision for the company was and how they fit into that vision. And what that leads to is disengagement, right? Because at the end of the day, compensation in the form of money is important to people. But when you find out why people leave companies, it's often like the fifth or sixth thing mentioned. It's not being appreciated. It's not knowing, how they fit into the overall mission. And so this vivid vision is an excellent tool to provide that clarity and provide that, thought, right? That this is how I fit in. This is what I'm contributing. And by doing that, it's going to help, these people, right? In our world, that's residents and investors. So, very exciting. So, that alignment it creates is the big thing, right? It's just that absolute alignment and clarity across the team.
Yeah, no, and what's interesting, John, I'm just looking up a couple of the articles there. It was interesting because you had 23%. This is powerful, guys. This is really powerful. So if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, listen to this. Gallup, so the numbers there, building on what you had suggested there, John, about the Gallup doing the study. So 23% of employees are engaged, 62% are not engaged, and 15% are actively disengaged, which means that they're terrorists in your company.
That's right. Yeah, the enemy's in the house, right? Or the call's coming from inside the house.
they're actively trying to blow up your business. Like that to me is like, oh man, like that's a big number. And so like, oh my goodness. So this is where like, how do you, it's the big one, the disengage, you have people there that are just going through the motions. They're maybe doing like a couple of hours of work, maybe. And the rest of it is they're just going through the motion. So having a clear vision is actually one of the key things to help engage more people because, listen, people want to be part of a winning team and they want purpose. So that was one of the things that we realized is that A players want mastery, they want autonomy, and they want purpose. Purpose is a big one. And so it's like, what's the mission here, guys? What are we trying to accomplish? Like, what's that big thing? And so if you get clear on what the vision is, you write this out. So you go to a quiet room and you start writing down, especially if you're the owner of the company, sit in a quiet spot and take what's in your mind and write it on a piece of paper. And by doing that and then cleaning it up, you could even put what you put down on that pad, type it into ChatGPT and say, make this a future letter, 3 years, and write it back to me. And if you do that, you will be surprised at how powerful it is when you share that with the team. Now, when you share with the team, it's important that as you're sharing it, you keep an eye and you see how people are responding to it. But when you're doing it, it'll be interesting to see how certain team members are engaged and others are totally checked out. And so watch, it'll be interesting. You want to be able to identify the actively disengaged is like when you're reading the vision, if people are like checked out and they're not really giving a crap about what you're saying, you might be able to spot one or two of them. And also you might be able to have one or two after say, hey, you know what? Like, I'm not with that. And they say, you know what, I'm not sure this is the right company for me. And that's okay. If they come to you after and say, like, this isn't for me, I don't want that growth. Like, I'm happy with the size of the company. That's good. Get clear on that up front and then find people that are aligned with that vision. And so, John, that was so powerful, us being partners, that we were very clear on the goal from the get-go with this mission. And because there's a lot of cases where partners, one has a much bigger vision than the other, and there's a disconnect. And that you better find that out sooner than later, because if you wait too long, you're going to be having this power struggle for years. And so the vision statement cuts through all that clutter early then you can make the right decisions to build the right team, have the right foundation for explosive growth.
Yeah. No, it's interesting when I think about my friends that are entrepreneurs that have had challenges, it's often because they selected the wrong partner, or they were too quick to maybe pull somebody up to a partner level where maybe, the company started, a great hire came on, that person started rising up a little bit, taking on more responsibility. And then maybe they gave them that, equity or whatever too quickly. Right. And so you and I had that benefit of a long-term relationship prior to getting into business together, which was super helpful. So I think that's where a lot of that alignment came easy. But, when I think about the vivid vision, Mark, I mean, this applies to the entrepreneur, the owner of the company, just the same as the employees. We spent a lot of time talking about how this helps employees with clarity, but for the employer himself, right, the business owner, it helps you shift out of that day-to-day sort of mindset and kind of give you more of a long-term strategic thinking. Because if you already know what the road looks like and how you want to get to that destination, or I should say, if you know what that destination looks like, you might have to divert from time to time or take a different route, or, something occurs in the economy and it shifts your plans, but you still have that North Star out there of that 3-year vision. And so you can get back on track, or, once again, maybe that diversion or that rerouting takes you to an even better place. And so I think that's a big component of it. It's that just total ability to move into proactivity versus reactivity, because you know exactly what you want this thing to look like. And this also applies, I would say, to, our customers, our investors, our residents. Like, this isn't something that we, once again, put in a file. It's talked about, on our career page, on our website, it's there. And you mentioned kind of in it's interesting kind of, by the way, with Zoom meetings, I think you would think by now people would realize we can all see when you're doing other things. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, why are your eyes moving from left to right rapidly? It's like, oh, you're reading an email, right? We're not, So anyway, if you're listening to this on Zoom and you're guilty of checking emails, know that everybody knows.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's good.
But yeah, so, that idea when I'm talking with a potential hire for our company, and I'm going to say I'm trying to scare them, but that's not really accurate. What I'm trying to do is make them totally clear on what we do and how we do it and the behaviors that are important to us and what we won't tolerate. So for example, early on, it's like, hey, look, we're a startup and we are very thoughtful on the front end. We try to build systems, but you may be building some railroad tracks as the train's already left the station. Are you comfortable in that type of environment? Right. So then it's like, okay, with a vivid vision, this is what we want this company to look like. And, I've actually had people opt out based on that, right? Which is the best thing that could ever happen, because better then than in 6 months after they've already started, right? So, this is a tool that's used across your business, and it's, almost like a daily, right? I mean, it's not literally daily for us, but I'm thinking about it. In fact, Mark, one thing I do in our quarterly reviews is for each department, since we have specific goals in that 3-year vision for each department, those are tracked on the quarterly review. And, I'm making sort of like a progress check. So I'm like, okay, we're about 60% of the way there, but maybe we should implement some surveys on the resident level at a few more points, because I don't know that we're getting all the feedback we need. And we're trying to create this experience. So it just helps me from a management perspective, and it helps the team member with clarity. And so we're moving these things down the path. Because once again, it's 3 years we're trying to accomplish these things. Some things we've checked the box on. We've already kind of completed it, but there's others that are longer term visions. And so checking in on that progress. So once again, it's talked about quarterly. We read it together as a team, and then we're doing quarterly reviews where we're checking progress. And then when we're crafting, sort of the quarterly priorities, we're looking at that document and saying, does this align with that, vivid vision that we've already created? So it's an incredible tool. Buy the book by Cameron Herold called Vivid Vision if you're an entrepreneur. What I love about it too, it's like 120 pages. It's very simple, and you could implement it right away. And to your point, even leverage ChatGPT if writing's not your thing. Just create a very detailed checklist, put it in there, and it'll write the narrative for you. So I love it.
Yeah, no, it's powerful. It does a good job. And you can actually, the cool thing here is we actually did this with their family for 1 year. We call them future letters. So 1 year down the road, we actually said, okay, what are the bullet points, key things that you want to accomplish for the year? And then it was so cool, John, because we typed it in a ChatGPT and said, write back a letter from 1 year down the road with all these in there, and write it in simple words, right? So you're not getting all these kind of, ChatGPT kind of, eloquent words that you would never say. And like, it's phenomenal. It's like, we'll do another one on, AI and ChatGPT and how we utilize it in our real estate investment firm. But the cool thing is you can do this with your family. So that's more of an aside. So let's jump in and go over the key parts of what Faris Capital, what we wrote down on ours. So if you are, maybe you're not looking to invest right now, that's totally cool. Take these key lessons, apply if you're a business owner, or not even maybe you're an entrepreneur. So you're working in a business, you're successful, and you can take this idea, you can implement this within your company or bring this idea forward. Super helpful. So, but context is really good. So we're going to share with you the key themes of Faris Capital's 2027 vision that we've written down. So, John, you want to take us through kind of the initial, and then we can kind of go back and forth and nail some of the key parts of this.
Yeah, that's right. So kind of the key themes. And, the first thing is, we think about the residents we want to serve. We always start with the resident in mind, because ultimately they're the fuel that fuels the fire for the investors, right? So, if we have a bad living experience and we're not taking great care of our residents, no matter what we do with our business plan and renovations, the investors will suffer. So, we want to serve 2,500 happy residents by the end of 2027. So that's 2,700 apartment doors owned and operated by our company, with that mission of Faris Residence to go full out for our residents and provide the best living experience in the world. We want to then, if you think, okay, 2,500 units, 2,500 happy residents, that's going to be approximately $500 million in assets under management, which means we'll need $250 million in capital raise from approximately 1,000 investors. So those are kind of the big ones. Now, those seem like big numbers, but over time, with responsible growth and, daily focus, we're well on our way towards achieving that goal. So that's kind of the headline, right? Because that's really what we're wanting to accomplish. But how do we get there? One of the first things we focus on is really the internal team. Nobody does anything alone. You have to have a strong partnership, and you also have to have an incredible group of team members around you, totally aligned with this mission. So, players only is top of mind for us. And one of the things we've realized, Mark, is, it's a relatively lean business we can run here. In other words, there's probably not going to be a time where we're going to have 700 employees at Faris Capital. So we made the decision to be remote only. Number one, we think it gives us the best access to the best talent, because I'm no longer constrained by like a 20-mile radius around a physical office. So I can go out and find the best talent. Now, I will say we generally wouldn't hire on the West Coast just because of the 3-hour time difference from the East Coast to West Coast. But I basically have Eastern and Central time zone, north and south. And so when we're posting job ads, we're posting in Canada, we're posting in the US, and we're posting really across all those two time zones. So we get the best access to the best talent, not just that talent group that happens to live close to our office. But how we implement that is with a highly accountable, and we use the EOS traction system, for our meeting rhythms and accountability. So regular check-ins, daily huddles, weekly level 10 meeting. We're always focusing on our metrics in those meetings, on the huddle, the number one metric, and then on the level 10, all of the metrics that each team member is held accountable to, comparing against their goal. And then when we bring these people on, man, one of the things, it's also the same in business, I found, with customers, but often the onboarding process isn't really well thought of. So we put a lot of time, effort, and attention to make sure that it's a great first day. I had the benefit of working with an incredible business consultant named Brett Henyon from Corporate Consulting. And he used to kind of, he has this 2-day class on recruiting. And he would kind of tell the story of like the first day at the office, and you show up and your desk, the computer's not there because IT forgot to set it up. You have no business cards. There's no phone. The manager comes by frazzled and is like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot today was your day. Here's a manual, read this, and I'll come catch up with you later this afternoon." Right. And that, kind of experience can sour what could have been a great, relationship and a great employee. Right. Because all of a sudden they're like, "Man, what did I sign up for here?" So making sure on day one, we have a curated first week and a first 90-day plan. So every employee that comes on board has a clear outline of what the first 90 days looks like, broken down by week. So they know the milestones they need to be reaching, the education that they need to be pursuing, whether it's internally or externally, books they should be reading, and regular check-ins. So those daily huddles they're invited to on day one. There's a big welcome. And then on top of that, we give them some nice gifts, right? So some swag, some, Faris Capital Partners polos, some hoodies, hats, a couple Yetis. So just make it a great first day where they just go, man, something's different about this company, right? And so that's all super important to us. And then from there, it's just not having any tolerance for mediocrity, right? At the end of the day, you've got to show up and perform. Now, everybody has a bad day, so we're not a cutthroat, you're having a personal situation, we cut you from the team. That's not how we operate. But at the end of the day, everybody's got to perform. So then it's all about you and I, and then, leading by example, right? Those core values, that genuine love of people, making wise choices, first-class service, operational excellence, and speed of execution. So that's kind of what the employee experience looks like. And that's all sort of articulated in our vivid vision. So it's not just something we think about one day and forget about. It's in the vision. We're talking about it. And so watch what happens if an employee starts with a company and didn't get that experience. They'll call us out on, well, I didn't get the love bomb. And, candidly, we did miss it one time, right? Just through some miscommunication. So we put more systems in place to ensure we always delivered. And that takes us kind of to that world-class investor experience, Mark. So do you want to take that one?
Yeah. And just before I do, it's interesting that there's such a good story. You show up and it's like everybody's frazzled. And it's like a lot of times like, yeah, follow Bob around. Bob will show you the ropes, right?
Yeah.
To follow along. But it's interesting. The very first day for most people, they show up 15 minutes early. And if you don't set the bar really high at that first day, like that first day is so critical. Then what happens is the next day, it's like they show up on time. And then the third day, if you're not monitoring and like keeping that bar high, all of a sudden they're like three minutes late on the third days because you didn't set the bar high on the first day. And so whatever bar you set on the first day is a high leverage activity. High. Like you can't overestimate on how important that is because you set the bar of what our standard is here. And so it's like put a lot on at the beginning. So like that's the standard of expectation. And I think if you do that, it'll pay off big time down the road. So the experience for investors. So this is something that is like world class. Best investing experience in the world is our mission for Faris Capital. And so parts of that are so monthly distributions on the same day. So we want to make those world class. The quarterly check-ins, the ongoing communication, world class. Decks printed and mailed every time we get a new deal. That's where we're going with this 2-minute speed to lead. So whenever there's an online lead, having our inside sales that we can follow up very quickly on those. So it's not waiting like we found in the industry. You're waiting for 2-3 days, maybe not even getting a phone call back. So 2 minutes. It's like we want to be able to have that incredible initial experience. The welcome kit. So when we close on a deal, it's like there's a gift there when to welcome them into the deal. Even for us, we've written down within the 3-year time frame for our investors that go larger in the investments to actually have planned events like getaways there. We've written down Naples, Florida. It's one of the best spots, in my opinion, to go visit if you're going to go visit someplace and get some warm. But to actually have like an event where we bring our top investors down, that's something that is part of the vision that we've written out. And so we have it written out that raving fans, that's what we're going after when it comes down to the investing side, not just like a number. When it comes to investments, we found that in the industry, it's very easy. It's like, okay, you're just a number versus, okay, we're really focusing on the client experience. And John, I'd say that, with our background serving customers and serving buyers and sellers on the residential side, we've really had to curate that experience, which I think gives us a major competitive advantage when it comes down to serving our investors and building a platform with that kind of strong foundation because it is more rare when it comes down to the investing side of it. And so that's something that we're really excited about, to build something that we can be really proud of, that our investors can, we'll just say, brag about to their friends. It's like, hey, listen, not only are we getting, incredible returns investing in real estate, I don't need to deal with the residents, and, you're getting solid US distributions that are coming back into your pocket, but this is how they're treating me, and here's all the extras that they're getting. Like that, you and I, we get lit up by that. And so that world-class experience is a big part of that vision that we've written down.
That's right. And, we've been very fortunate to already receive a lot of feedback from our investors that, our monthly updates are the best they've ever seen, the distributions being delivered on time, and just a lot of the resources we provide, which actually takes us to our next point. So, one of our missions or goals is to basically have the most educated investors. That could look like, once again, these updates that we're sending out, so they're very familiar with what's happening at the property level, the good, the bad, the opportunities, and just, everything, very transparent. But beyond that, right? So with our newsletter, we're providing, a lot of commercial real estate news that is impacting both sides of the border. This podcast is an example of it. The blogs that we write. So having a world-class website that performs, and optimizes that experience for those potential investors, whether they're investing with us or somebody else. Internally, we also have some goals, right? I mean, we don't mind sharing with you. We want to have 50,000 social media followers in 3 years, and grow our annual email list by 40% every year. You're currently finishing your really second book. We have the Full Out Investor book that we wrote last year, but your Full Out Agent book is coming soon. But beyond that, you're going to start working on that investor book. So having a best-selling real estate investing book is something we want to accomplish in the next 3 years, as well as, once again, just everything being value-add, educational focused, right? So, not really selling, more informing and educating is really what we're talking about.
No. Yeah, I'm excited with this investor book there. We're definitely getting our stories in, and there's going to be lots of good stories shared. With any sort of startup, John, we're into the 3-year mark right now, but past the 2-year point, and there's good stories along the way, and so there'll be no shortage of good stories on the mission or on the journey that we've had to date. But looking forward to documenting that and hammering that out with you. It's like anything, whatever you put into something, you either make it really good or not, and that'll be something that we'll be proud of for sure.
That's right.
On that, and good insights for investors. And so, it's all based around this educational side of it. It's like we really want to be the resource for, understanding real estate investing, and especially the larger multifamily properties, because it's hard to know, whatever you're learning, is it actually being used out there in the market currently? And that's something, because we're very active, what we're talking about is what we're actually doing in real time. So, that's the real deal there, and we'll keep doing that. So in regards to the financial metrics that we're reporting on, that is something that we hitting our tax slips on time each and every year, both for our Canadian investors and on the US side. But, just staying very, very prominent and tight, we'll say tight, and monitoring all of our financial metrics. And then being able to build relationships with our real estate brokers, and making sure that we have, so we track the amount of deals that come live that actually go to market and sell. And so this is a really good book we picked up from a broker, and in there he talks about having this love factor. And so it's a measurement that measures the amount of properties that came online that maybe you saw or you didn't see that actually sold. And so with John and you and I, we've talked a lot about this, is that we want every single off-market deal, we like to at least know about it, to say yes or no. And so for us, building relationships with brokers, that's a big metric that we're factoring in. Is like we're tracking all closed deals. And if we didn't get access to that, it's like we want to know okay, what are we missing here? Who's the relationship that is falling short? But we want to be that group that gets access to all these off-market deals that, otherwise our investors would never get access to. And so that's right there in the vision as well.
That's right. Yeah. And just for that clarity, so we're looking at what deals we received and then compared against what sold. And so we're looking to basically have 90% plus of all those deals sent to us. So if, for example, we see a broker and they close 7 deals and we didn't get any of them, then that's been a big miss on our part. We need to go and put a lot of focused effort into building relationship with that broker so that, going forward, we're getting those deals. And then, kind of talking through that component, right? Like consistently exceeding our pro forma projections on those exits. So that just helps us be mindful of our conservative underwriting approach and making sure that we can truly deliver on what we're promising our investors. Next, kind of this all flows in. We buy the asset, right? But that best in class property and resident experience, as I told at the top, that is the most important factor for us because it's the Costco philosophy. If we hire really great people and take great care of them, they'll in turn, take great care of our residents, and the residents will take care of the shareholders, in this case, those investors. So one of the things that we did that's a bit, I would say, not necessarily unusual, but you don't see it a lot, is we actually have an in-house construction manager. And so usually what you see is property management comes first, and then you'll go and maybe build out a construction team and let the property management arm of your company manage that. And most third-party property management companies do manage, if you would like them to, the construction. But we felt like at the end of the day, the biggest chunk of the investor's capital, beyond the down payment, is going to be in the renovations. And so for us, we felt that, gosh, bringing a construction manager on will help us reduce the cost of those renovations, because the guy that we have, Dom, is he can do some of the work himself. So he's very hands-on. So he's saving money. Now we're paying him a salary, but at the end of the day, he can go do that work and save us a few $1,000 just on the stuff he can do as an individual. But what's the biggest benefit is he's actually coming to the property tours with us and doing a sort of pre-inspection even before we go under contract. So, we just looked at a deal in Metro Atlanta, and, we were able to get like 180 photos, a bunch of videos, and he was able to go through those. He will come in town prior to LOI, but even before that trip gets booked in, he's had an opportunity to really granularly go through the condition of the property. And in this particular case, it was actually cool. We had to tweak our landscaping budget up a little bit. We added about $500 per unit to our renovation costs because we discovered that 50% of the units have fireplaces and they're ugly. So we're going to need to paint those. But by having him right there, we know our budget's tight. And, candidly, we were talking about the impact of tariffs, and there's some new requirements with HVAC systems coming into play soon. So it may be where it's harder to find parts for older compressors soon. And so, just having that knowledge, and I don't mind sharing with you, I didn't know about the HVAC thing because it's like hot off the presses, but, he knew about it. And so he prevented us from potentially making a big miss under budgeting, potential HVAC replacements. So that's a big focus. And then on our property management level, we're doing some really cool things, Mark. And our vision is to basically have incredible events, financial literacy, lending libraries, where we have books available that residents can check out. But it's so cool when you have this vision. What starts to happen is it takes on a life of its own. And so, for example, at our Largo asset, look, expenses are going up. Groceries are more expensive. And so the property manager, Corey Perkins, so awesome, had this thought with Georgia Patron, our asset manager, and they did a farmer's market, and they had vendors sponsor it and provide basically $25 in free groceries paid for by the vendor. But, high quality fruits and vegetables and meat, straight from the farm at a better price. And so just those little things that, when you have that clarity of vision, all of a sudden the team starts going, well, gosh, what if we did this? What if we did that? And we don't approve everything. It has to make sense, and it has to be a value add for our residents and our investors. But I just love that kind of approach. And then internally, like when we do surveys, we want 90% tenant satisfaction. We want residents to provide 20% of our leases through referrals. So we have a referral program there. And most importantly, we've talked about this before, but our 28-day transformation, we want to make such an impact with that at Faris Faris Capital Partners that other operators start going, we want to do that. It becomes sort of like a market standard. So that's kind of our view on that. But that's where we go in and attack the exterior and the amenity renovations in the first 30 days. So the residents are wowed, because in this business, Mark, as you know, a lot of these buildings can trade every 3 to 5 years. And so residents that are there long term might be on their third owner or fourth owner. And what often happens is the new owner comes on, nothing really changes, and the rent goes up. And they're like, well, what just happened? So we're coming in and saying, no, we're going to make your property so much more beautiful, so much more convenient with great amenities, safety considerations we put in place that they're just like, I get it. I'm happy to pay that rental increase. And then, to summarize, right, I think that purpose-driven approach, right, Mark?
Yeah, 100%. So this is where, and by the way, John, I just want to highlight how much of an impact that is making, that we're giving first within that first 28 days, the first 4 weeks is such a differentiating factor that is just not normally. And I was actually surprised when we started doing this. I was surprised that it wasn't being done more regular.
Right.
I really was. And so you're buying these properties, they're tens of millions of dollars. You would think that's on day one, you said the right word. You said we attack it. It's full out for you. It's one of our slogans that we work through here. It's passionately engaged. But day one, it's why not make an impact in the community? If you listen, we could have an event, we could throw wine and cheese and all the rest of this, and tell them things are going to change. But ultimately, for them, it's okay, I'll believe it when I see it. But if we don't say anything and then we go in and do it, and then we hold the event to say, hey, listen, you guys like everything that we did, that is a completely different conversation. And so this is such a big impact. The residents are loving it. And so all that's driving net operating income. Ultimately, that helps drive net operating income because it'll help us actually get higher rents. Our retainment of residents stay higher, and allows us to have more profits, which actually is the end result for us, is giving the ability to give back 10% of our net profits back to the community. And so that's through Faris Cares there. And so this is as we grow and develop and grow and keep that process ongoing, our goal is to be able to be more profitable and to be able to give back more, and ultimately make it a major win for our investors, win for the community, win for the residents, and then win for Faris Capital all the way around. So we really think that this is purpose driven is what it is ultimately, and there's a lot of winners in that game.
That's right. So that's our vivid vision. So if you're listening to this and you're a business owner, as even you said, Mark, maybe you're an executive or a manager at a company, that entrepreneurial role, maybe take that to your department and then show your the owner of the company how well it worked, and then bring it to the entire business potentially. But to kind of summarize, with the vivid vision, or say without it, you're sort of in reaction mode. With it, you're leading because you know exactly where you're headed. And so you can navigate any uncertainty or any challenges because you know exactly what that destination looks like. And this is kind of maybe what we had at Mark Spain Real Estate, although we had a lot of success. It was a kind of vague, our mission. And so, the clear, vivid vision inspires action. And that's a great example I shared there at the property level with the farmers market. That wasn't necessarily in our vision, but it inspired that decision. People really want to follow something they can identify and wrap their mind around. When they talk to their friends and family, what do you do? It's oh my God, this place is different, and here's why. It's exciting. They want to share and talk about it. And then that strong vision, really, this is the biggest benefit. It attracts the right kind of talent and partners and even investors to your business, because when they feel and see that something's different here, that's what attracts people to you. So pick up the book by Cameron Herold. It's a great read, and implement it in your business, and you'll be happy you did.
Right on, guys. So again, if you are interested in learning more, go to fulloutinvesting.com, and you'll see our 10-step investing process and a sample deal as well. Go to fulloutinvesting.com. Thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share with other high net worth investors that you think will benefit from it. Thanks for tuning in to the Multifamily Investor Playbook. We love and believe in you guys. Keep dreaming and investing big.